Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor, who will make a mummy out of you, in episode number 393. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
He didn't actually, though, did he?
He wrapped him up in bandages.
But did he? I thought we were kind of led to believe that the monk was doing that to fool him because the Doctor went on holiday.
Oh.
What?
Yeah, I thought the Doctor actually somehow wrapped him up in bandages and stuffed him in the sarcophagus.
Well, yeah, we didn't see it, but off screen he attacked the monk.
We don't know that he attacked the monk. The monk told us he attacked him, but the monk is a well-known
You hear
liar.
him attack him.
Well, and the comic even leads you to believe it, so I'm assuming the scripting kind of did as
See, the
well,
comic
so.
is what made me think, oh, maybe he didn't do it. Oh, well.
I think Peter Buttersworth going, no, Doctor, no.
Yeah.
At the end of that episode was enough proof for me that the Doctor overpowered him, wrapped him up, and threw him in a sarcophagus. Which, wow, what a bad aid Doctor, first Doctor
You
moment.
don't expect the first Doctor to do that.
No, you
Pertwee,
don't.
maybe. Did you guys have a good week? Do anything fun?
Went to a Royals game. They lost 8-0. So I don't know how fun it was.
That's rough.
They had $1 hot dogs. They were gross. Yeah, no, not really.
We had a garage sale, so I was off Friday. We had a garage sale Friday and Saturday, which is why last week's episode got out so late.
Our apologies. It's Glenn's fault.
Friday was busy. Friday we were pretty steady busy, and Saturday was really super slow. In fact, we closed up at 1 on Saturday because there's just nobody showing up. We maybe had 24 people, and that was it.
That's good.
And then Caitlin's birthday was actually on Thursday, but we celebrated yesterday with my parents, and we got that Betrayal in the House on Haunted Hill. She got that for her birthday, and we played that on Sunday night. Did you guys watch anything?
Mm-mm.
You didn't watch anything?
No.
Of course, it's only been like 4 days since we recorded last, but I watched something, and I can't remember what it was, and I was going to talk about it on the show, and now I can't remember what it was. And so...
Was it
Oh,
Delta
no, I
and the
remember what it was.
Bannerman?
No.
Because you're kind of doing that thing?
No. No. No, it's not important. Never mind.
You can't just go through all of that. And
All right, let me
not
go.
say what it was.
I'll try to make this condensed version of this because it's really not all that important. But like, I've been having a lot of trouble sleeping. So what I do is I go to Amazon Prime because they have these really, really crappy documentaries about UFO sightings or Bigfoot or Enday's prophecy or just these, because what those do is I can turn them on and they're so mind numbing that I go to sleep. So they're great. But anyway, so I watched this one, which was probably the most outrageous one now that I've watched. And I can't even remember what it's called. The Knowledge of All Time, I think. And there's like 8 parts. Well, I stumbled across part 8. Anyway, it talks about the reason that UFOs visit us so frequently is because they're coming through a Stargate that the point is in the sun because the sun is heavy and it sets in a hole in space, so it dents space. So the reason they're able to come through here and visit us is because they come through a wormhole in the sun, and that's why there's all the imagery from Egyptian times, which is funny. It ties into this this week's episode. So there we go. I have tied it in. Anyway, because of all the imagery of the sun being God and all this stuff, and it's because these aliens came and visited it, and supposedly the pyramids are one of the stargates on Earth. So that's why there's one there. There's one in the Inca civilization. There's one in the Aztec civilization because this is the places they visited, and they've been trying to give us warning signs about. They tied everything in. They tied the glyphs that are carved into the ground in Peru, the Easter Island heads. They took. It's like they took a ball and they pushed it all together of all of these different things, and then they threw it at this episode. So here's the kicker of this. I watch these things to go to sleep, right? At 4:00 in the morning, I'm going, why did I sit and watch this whole thing? This was supposed to put me to sleep. So yeah, I
So
think
when you
it's
say
called...
this whole thing, you mean you went back and watched episodes
No,
1
I
through
didn't go that
7?
far. No, but I had started watching it at about... I think it's about 2 hours. This particular part
Oh, this
8,
chunk was 2 hours.
This particular
man.
part 8 is 2 hours. They didn't sell me on anything. It was so absurd. Some of the things that they were throwing. Now, here's the other thing about it that goes to the flat earthers that we've been talking about all this time. Here's the catch too. About 30 minutes into this, they start talking about flat Earth and about the flat Earth and how it's becoming so popular now. And then I'm going, oh, okay, here we go. This is this is a flat earther group too. They believe in a flat Earth. And they basically explain how flat Earth is becoming very popular. They do some explaining about flat Earth and what they believe. And then he goes, and the reason why there are so many people and it's becoming such a large phenomenon with people and people are believing it, it's because we're dumb. And I went, oh, that might have been the first hook, because then I went, oh. And he said that apparently the narrator of this thing explains that the reason why we're at an end time scenario is because society is dumbing itself down, and they use that as one of the examples. And I thought, aha.
So with all...
I was trying to do the convince. I didn't expect to answer questions in an essay.
They put forth all this stuff, and I'm sure they do it with much
as
aplomb
much authority as they can.
And the guys that believe all of this stuff is happening are calling the flat earthers dumb. Not like with the pot calling the kettle black or anything.
Nope.
Just straight out.
It's because we're dumb. Because they're dumb. That's what it says.
There you have it. The defense
Wow.
rests. When even the crazies think you're dumb, you gotta go, well.
So apparently I watched enough for all of us this week. So. All right. What do we got in the news this week?
Oh, another leak.
What?
There's been another leak.
Cereal?
You say that like you're surprised. You're the one that brought it to our
So it appears
Oh,
to
that
be...
leak. Yeah. I thought you meant another on top of that one.
Oh, no.
I thought he was playing dumb.
No.
Like this was the first time I heard of it.
I'm not a flat earther, thank you very much.
What leaked, Keith?
So
I'll set you up.
supposedly it's the TARDIS interior. I have not seen the picture, and I don't know if it's a continuation of the same leak or if it's a brand new leak. But the BBC has got lots of holes.
Continue of the same leak.
Like if it's more information pulled from the initial leak. Or
Okay,
if it's
wait,
brand new.
what are we qualifying as the initial leak?
Well, whatever the first...
That clip?
Yeah.
Oh, no. This is supposedly different.
Well, it's different material, but if the source is the same is unclear.
No, from what I understand is this particular person was a person that worked on the set
Ooh,
that snapped this. And in
someone's
fact,
fired.
he's a friend of the set designer, and the set designer is now mad at him. So
Well, yeah.
mad at them, I should say. They did not disclose whether it was a male or a female. So no, it does not sound like they're connected.
So if you don't want to see it and you start to maybe see something on Facebook, just block it initially. That's what I've been doing. I've been
You don't
blocking
have-
any
And
posts.
there have
let
been
me
a few
paint you
people.
a visual picture
I
here
don't
so
wanna
that you
hear
know what it looks like.
There have been a few people that have posted right to Facebook, and I think that's kind of uncool, especially
It's
when
very
there's people
uncool.
that don't want to see it. So I would say refrain from posting, and if you see once it gets into your news feed, though, it's hard to avoid it. I'll tell you that.
I do it by staying off Facebook mostly.
Well, there you go. Or only go to our site.
Right. And don't click on links on our site.
They had a warning
Well,
flag.
I
in
know.
it.
Yeah,
And the picture was hidden within the link.
that's
which
just
is
it.
nice.
We were pretty responsible. We went to DoctorWhoTV.net. Is that net or com?
.co.uk.
That's it.
That one.
Co.uk, who had posted a spoiler and hid the actual photo for anybody that didn't want to actually see it. So
And if you didn't get to see it, well, you missed out.
yeah, because
You're lucky.
that original Reddit post was pulled hours later. I think I mean, if somebody wanted to see it, they could be really diligent and do some searching. I'm sure it's all over
Oh,
the place
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So
Which leads me to believe that it was probably real.
Oh, I think it's been qualified that it was real. Yeah, I think they've already qualified that. Yeah, I don't think there was some question, I think, over the weekend as to whether it was real or not. And I think they've qualified that, yeah, it was, in fact, a real set piece. So.
I don't like it.
Well,
Another thing Sean doesn't like about
to be
13th
fair,
Doctor.
without describing the image that was posted is not lit. And so it could look a lot better than it did non-lit, which I think is why the set director was not happy, because it does not paint that picture in a very good light. So, sorry,
Literally.
did not mean to go that way.
Literally.
Anyway,
We'll see. We'll find
here's
out.
the thing. It is what it is. This is the society. This is what we live in now, and there is no going back. Pandora's box has been opened. There is no fixing this. People have to expect they're going to be spoiled one way or another. You can do all you want to avoid it, and I encourage you to do it if you're trying to avoid them. But you have to understand that this is the world we live in, whether we like it or not. This is the world we live in.
What I think is really interesting is the role reversal, because last time I was the one crying foul about I don't want to know. I'm sticking my head in the sand for the next 3 months so I don't find out anything about anything, and you were like, oh, it's going to happen. And Glenn gave almost verbatim, if you went and looked it up,
because I always do.
that spiel.
Yeah.
And now I'm the one going, did you see the leak? And you're going, no, I don't want to know. What? I finally come on board with something, and you're like, I don't want to know.
I'm off the spoiler train.
I never wanted to get on the spoiler train.
Well, then stop climbing aboard.
I'm the one that said last time this happened, I felt like I was being spoiled because of the podcast. Because of the very nature that we were going to talk about this stuff, I kind of had to be in the know of it.
Oh,
That's
we don't talk
more about the
spoilers,
official
though.
stuff.
We don't talk spoilers. We talk.
You were talking official stuff then.
Yeah, and I didn't want to know that either.
Well, that's different.
Yeah.
Official is completely different from leaks. I've never sought out leaks.
I'm going to have, you're absolutely right. He has never sought out leaks. On the other hand, the official stuff are on the borderline of spoiling things for people as well. So we went through that whole, we went through that whole thing last
John
season.
Sim's going to be in it. Why would you tell me that?
Did you see he's returning this season?
No, I didn't.
It's because I'm making it up. All right.
Because we don't talk about spoilers.
What else is in the news, Keith?
Well, Lethbridge Stewart has announced their first book of the new series, The Laughing Gnome, and it's called Scary Monsters.
You mean Candy Jar Books?
Yes. Scary Jar.
Okay.
Yes, Lethbridge Stewart. Written by...
The series, yes.
The series, yes. Written by Simon A. Forward. Set in 1981, so it's a slightly older brig. Quite a bit older brig.
Okay, there you go. Keith, I think I have to take exception with slightly older.
It's battle. It's what? It would be a little before or after Battlefield?
What year?
81?
It's teaching. Brig.
Teaching brig. So, not Battlefield. It'd be Modwin. Modwin
Yes,
brig.
yes.
But he gets the time travel. So, spoilers.
And an absolutely gorgeous cover.
Yeah, it is a very...
Oh, I love the new artwork. I think they look terrific.
Yeah.
I love them, yeah.
I again, this is one of those when they said, "Oh, we're updating the artwork," and no, because I like the, and then I saw it and I went, "Oh, okay,
well,
that's cool."
I like new phase, new look. I like that. I think that's a good tactic to take with a book series, especially. So,
and the cover art is done by a Titan Comics artist. So a little nice little cross-pollinating there.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it.
me too.
It forms something of a sequel to Blood of Atlantis. So you have to read the book to find out how and why.
We were kind of spoiled on some characters that are returning, and we're excited.
Of course, the press release spoils that too.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay. Well, we were told a few weeks back,
Yes,
actually, before
yes.
the press release came out.
So that's cool.
It's good to have insider knowledge.
Yes, it is. And our final bit of news, Big Finish is celebrating 20 years of audio adventures with a couple of box sets. One including the 7th Doctor New Adventures, which features Yasmin Bannerman playing Roz Forrester and Travis Oliver playing Chris Quigg. I'm not sure how you say
I don't know any of those names.
Me neither. So they are returning to, or they're. Oh, I'm sorry. They are Virgin Books New Adventures companions.
Now, if I understand how.
Wait, what were the names again?
Roz and Chris.
Roz and Chris. Okay, I got you. Yeah, they were in Downtime. Or not Downtime, Shakedown that I read.
So these are the new adventures.
I do remember.
And if I understand this correctly, it's what they're doing is they are doing audio in the style of
the New Adventures
books, but they're not actually adapting the New Adventures books.
So these are continuations of the New Adventures.
Right.
Very cool. I'm excited for that.
That's coming out in November. And there's also going to be some Fourth Doctor stories called the Comic Strip Adaptations, which is going to come in March of next year. And they will feature Beep the Meep.
Is that from Legion?
The Dave Gibbons collection.
Yeah. What's it called?
Iron
Legion.
Iron Legion is what it is, yeah.
I almost said Legion of Doom. Like, no.
That's another comic
That's a whole nother.
Although the Iron Legion's a comic thing.
Meep
too,
was this little, like, malicious kind of... Not malicious. He was more... Well, he was malicious, but he was... what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know. I haven't read
Nobody
them.
can help me. Anyway, he had these little pointy ears, and he kind of had like a kind of a rodent face to him. It was round, and I think if I'm remembering these right, it's been a while since I've read them. Malicious? No. What am I looking for? Mischievous. That's the word. I knew somebody would land on it eventually. So yeah, that's kind of cool.
I knew. I just wasn't going to help.
Oh, thanks.
Having way too much fun watching you flounder.
So this is going to be a 2-story adaptation, both adapted by Alan Barnes, and it's going to be a 5-disc CD box set. So these are going to be long stories.
Well, the Iron Legion was a long story arc in the comic books, so there's probably a lot to get in there. So
it's going to be Doctor Who in the Iron Legion and Doctor Who in the Star Beast.
Oh yeah.
More naming conventions that Sean doesn't like.
That followed up the Iron Legion story arc. So yeah, they're going right along.
And in fairness, now I've never completely read both of those stories, but I've read bits and pieces of both of those stories, and these are going to have to just kind of as a fair warning for anybody who hasn't been invested in that. It's definitely a sidestep. It's not, even though it's Tom and it's a comic story. Well,
both of these are kind of sidesteps.
Yeah, that's
for
true too.
New Adventures and the Iron Legion.
But this is a
I don't think
a cider step.
It's a parallel universe Doctor almost.
I would disagree. I think. Well, of course, I'm the guy that wants everything to fit in all the same world, but I kind of felt that less so than the New Adventures. I thought the David Gibbons stuff. I think it worked within.
Iron Legion works better than the
Star Beast,
but I suppose it depends on how they handle it too.
Is it along the Frobisher lines of not quite?
No, it's not quite TV comic. First Doctor, it's not that side.
Oh yeah, no, they're not that far out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, First and Second Doctor, but I'd say somewhere between. I think you could. I don't know. I read them, and I thought you could make them work within the universe.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they just aren't. I mean, you'd have to find slivers within Tom's run for them to have happened. But I think they
I don't,
because he's companionless, right?
No, he ends up with a companion. I can't remember her name. She's I think she's of African descent. Anyway, she's black. But I think that's the Star Beast one. I don't think that he met up with her until Star
maybe
Beast.
the end of Iron Legion, but yeah, I don't remember for sure.
They haven't announced who's going to play her.
He kind of tagged along. She kind of tagged along with him for a while. So
yeah, I mean, it's not TV action comic. It's not Peter Cushing off. No, it's still Doctor Who, but it's just.
That's about as far off as you can get. You're just really covering your bases there. Well, it's not Peter Cushing.
Well, it's off in that sense that the Doctor does run an orphanage, so it's a little different than what you would expect. No, I'm kidding.
I'm excited for that stuff. That's good.
I'm excited.
So is it like
I may have to go back and read the story.
Is it like original
I think
Marvel?
we may have to pair those up.
Oh, that'd be
we should
fun.
do.
Yeah. Is it like original Star Wars Marvel comics?
It's not even that.
Not even
It's
that
not
far
even
off?
That far. Well, the thing is, though, it's it's in the same vein of that.
Well, yeah,
because
it's the same time frame.
That's just it. These comics were coming out soon after, not long after, the Fourth Doctor was on screen. Same thing with the Star Wars comics, is Marvel decided to embellish the universe a bit, and so they took off in their own direction. And then what happened was later on, they suddenly don't fit in the EU because they went a whole different direction. I think it's mildly the same in this vein, that the comics were kind of doing their own thing, and they were expanding the adventures of the Doctor as the TV series was kind of narrowing the scope. And so it kind of gets convoluted in that way, but not so much that they don't work within the universe of Doctor Who, whereas Star Wars really doesn't.
In a show that has destroyed the Earth with solar flares 3 different times. It's
you can wedge it in somewhere.
Yeah, you can always make it work.
Cool. Anything else?
That's it in the news.
Well, let's move on to feedback.
This week's feedback comes from Holly.
Holly writes, the end block of the Daleks Master Plan. Hey guys, the wrap of this story was good. Master Chen and the meddler have done what damage they could and managed to get away pretty much unscathed. Overall, a very good story. Looking forward to your thoughts on the last few parts of this. Holly from Wisconsin.
Very good.
Thanks, Holly. The monk got away pretty much unscathed. I don't know if I'd say Mavic Chen got away pretty much unscathed.
Any other feedback?
That's it.
Keith, where can they send it if they want to send us something?
You can send it directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com, or if you're on our website listening to the show, you can just click on the Send Us Feedback tab and fill out the form there, or you can reach out to us on any form of social media. If you happen to be on Facebook and you go to our page, you can click email and we'll do the whole thing there.
While you're on our page, consider supporting us as a patron on Patreon. You can go to our page and click on the Become a Patron link. I'll take you right there, and thank you to those who are continuing to support us on Patreon. All right, should we move on to our review?
Let's.
Cool.
Golden Death. The Dr. Stephen and Stara travel to ancient Egypt, pursued by both the Daleks and the meddling monk.
So the first of the Egypt stories, I was really struggling. Is that the...
We started.
There were two, right?
Yeah. This was there were 2 in Egypt and 2 on Kimball. There
wasn't a lot of dialogue. It seemed like it was mostly a silent.
There was a lot of action, especially when the Daleks are slaughtering the Egyptians.
And for some reason, I felt I was really struggling keeping my focus with it. I mean, it's already difficult because it's a recon, but just.
But you were watching the recon,
or the recon? Pardon me.
A recon?
Yeah.
I didn't have any problem with it.
I didn't have any problem.
I don't know. I don't know why.
Of course, I haven't really had much problem with any of the recons so far this time.
Yeah, this one for some reason didn't hold my attention. But then when we flip back over to, they made up for it with the live action segment of Egypt, which is probably, and this is going to sound really strange in a Dalek centric story, this was probably the strongest standalone segment of the entire thing.
The 2 Egyptian parts, or just the one?
The second half of the Egyptian part, for me.
I wouldn't say that's standalone.
Well, you know what I mean.
It kind of needed the previous part.
The individual episode was one of the best things of this whole run. I loved the second half of it. I thought it was visually striking. I thought they did an amazing job making me believe that, wow, that looks like ancient Egypt. I know it's a backlot set somewhere that, that background's not actually there, but it doesn't matter. They did a really good job. I thought the Dalek operators did a fantastic job moving through debris until they couldn't.
Where they use that to the Egyptians' advantage, which was really clever.
Things that we've never seen before, at least I've never seen before done. And I was like,
especially up to this point.
Especially up to this point, yeah.
I also want to throw a shout out. I've seen people that give Hartnell props for being good looking. And I don't mean to take anything away from him. I've never felt that. I've never thought Hartnell struck particularly. He's the Doctor. He's the grandfather figure to me. He's never been a.
What sites do you visit?
You don't want to know.
I've never heard anybody say that.
They're always
Bill
posting
Hartnell
pictures of young Bill Hartnell going, "Oh, look how handsome the Doctor is," and that kind of stuff. And I've never gone into
You
that.
still saw old Bill Hartnell.
I still old Bill Hartnell, regardless of what it was. But the hat, when he wears the white fedora and he runs around, this guy
I think it was Panama, wasn't it?
Well, Panama, whatever it is. Yeah, I get it now. This is no.
This is
Will you
taking
get your mind out of the gutter?
This is taking a weird turn.
This, I think, is honestly the strongest I've seen Bill Hartnell. His portrayal of the Doctor, there was something about when he put the hat on.
Right, you're getting there.
Suddenly he became much more man of action, much more convinced
Okay, you're
of
getting
his...
there. All right.
There is a lot more glimpses of the man he becomes.
I had to wait around there for a while, though. You come out of the gate with a review of this thing is Bill Hartnell's really not all that bad looking.
Well, he's not. he cut quite a striking figure in that hat. And I
really couldn't get into listening to him, but when I got to watch him in action, boy, howdy.
The other thing that surprised me is I think I've only ever seen one photo of him in the hat. Like, ever. And I've never seen any live action footage from this episode. How is that possible? That we have such a limited run of stuff anyway. How is it that I've never seen clips from this?
You admitted a few weeks ago you hadn't broke open your
No, I
Lost
haven't.
in Time box. First thing I did when I got my Lost in Time box set. Oh, Doctor Who that's lost here. I'm going to watch this.
Still hoping they animate them.
Oh, I think they so need to animate all of these parts. I think it would sell. I think it would do well.
Yeah.
It's the entire series is good. It's solid Doctor Who, especially from the era that it comes from. And we'll get into it a little bit more. There are some clunkers. There are some pad filling. There is some things that I personally would have done differently if I was doing it. But overall, it's a very strong story. It's a very strong story arc, and there's a lot of things. And I think what it benefits from is Terry Nation writing part of it and Dennis Spooner writing part of it. Even though Terry Nation gets credit for an idea, Dennis Spooner kind of gives it a fresh spin and gives us something different and new and doesn't feel retread, which I think Terry Nation could have gone into that trap of really kind of giving us some stuff that had come before, because we already know that he's very much done that in the past where he'll kind of retread ideas. I don't think he retreaded anything in the first part of this, but there was a chance that it could have happened, and by Dennis Spooner taking over halfway through, I think that really good, gave it some freshness that I think the story it probably benefited from.
I'll agree with that, because I do think he plagiarized himself a little bit. I think he stole from the chase, and
well, I think we talked
certainly
about
from himself.
Yeah, well,
there were a couple of episodes that felt repeated.
You even pointed out that the concepting of how the story's at least blocked out is even similar to Marinus. So,
but yeah, I agree with you that I think Spooner kind of gave it the lift that it needed, so that we didn't get really bogged down in a 12-part Terry Nation extravaganza.
The thing about the Egyptian two-parter...
Was I saying Terry Nation or was I saying Terrence?
You said Terry Nation.
Okay.
You said Terry Nation.
I had this moment of, wait, did I say his name?
The other Terry, we know. We're talking Daleks, it's that one.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing about the Egyptian two-parter is we actually have a story set in Egypt, and the Egypt is overshadowed by Daleks and the meddling monk.
I know.
How is there not a full-length Doctor Who story set in Egypt other than Big Finish?
That got me too. I was like,
just the production value alone was fantastic enough. They easily could do a story similar. It doesn't have to be similar to the Aztecs, but it could be that tonally of the Aztecs. You can't change the history of, and it turns out the Doctor was the cause of the pyramids or something.
When you think of Egypt and you think of all of the backstory of Egypt, when you think of Ra and the Sun Gods, when you think of mummies, when you think of cursed tombs, this is Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah.
This is fertile ground for Doctor Who.
Even before you introduce those sirens. Yeah.
How have we not done this?
On the other hand, I quite enjoyed Egypt just being a backdrop for this story. I really did.
Yeah.
I see where you guys are coming from, and I think surprising that they haven't gone down that road.
And it's not a statement on these two episodes.
Right.
It's more a statement on the show in general.
Wow,
Yeah.
why has that not happened yet?
Yeah.
Well, because, and maybe it would have had they not gotten away from doing the
That's
more
true.
historic pieces that they set out to do originally and really didn't do well on some of them, and some they did fine.
Right.
maybe that would have come about. But I think it serves well as a backdrop, especially since we could have ended up, and not to mention, we could have ended up putting them in another jungle, in another planet somewhere, and kind of retread some of those
The variety
same.
is
Yeah, the
is
variety
good.
is great to put them down in Egypt, just after the pyramids have been built. Our primitives are ancient Egyptians as opposed to any other society or organization or society or anthropological civilization. So I think it works well as the backdrop, especially with the what I really liked about it is the head guy, instead of being like, oh, these big iron machines that throw fire are going to overpower us, oh, quick run for the hills. They're very much gung ho. We attack. We've got to save the tomb. We've got to save the treasures that are getting ready to be sealed in the tomb. Pretty much get defeated. Your first wave of guys gets defeated, and you kind of retreat. But you're waiting for the other guy to run off and get the reinforcements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for them not to be the running scared, to be ready to stand and fight. I thought that was kind of easily could have been a run away,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. So
Yeah.
I kind of like that as
And
well.
it was nice that we got not so much a team up between the Doctor and the natives, but we didn't fall into that trap of, oh, we've been captured by whatever indigenous species is here, and then we have
Yeah.
to go and, oh, the Daleks are coming. Was a Dalek? Well, it's
Well, it's almost like the Doctor inadvertently uses the Egyptians in order to help rescue Stephen and Sarah. He doesn't make any sort of plan with them. He doesn't meet up with them and say, peace, we want you to help me. We can vanquish these. There's no contact whatsoever with the Doctor, but the Doctor uses the situation.
He knows how they're going to respond.
Yeah, exactly. He knows how they're going to respond, so he utilizes that situation in the chaos. Unfortunately, I get the impression that he didn't intend to hand over the Terranium core to Mavic Chim, because he does make the point. I think he would have done anything, to get Sarah and Stephen back, and I think that was where they were going. But I think ultimately he thought maybe he could get best of both worlds. He could get them and maintain the core. And I think the comic goes even more so to explaining that within the chaos he lost it. It wasn't necessarily that he handed it to Mavic Chin and ran off like he kind of seems to do in the TV episode. But
And the one strange thing for me about that in the TV episode is that he's really, I am now giving the cylinder to Mavic, and it almost sounds like he's setting it up because he knows that they are out there waiting to attack, and that I will give you the signal. Are you listening? Because I'm doing this now.
See, I didn't.
But
even
he never made that.
Yeah, I
that
didn't even
plot,
get
so.
that. Yeah, I didn't even get that impression. Although maybe he was alerting them that they were distracted, but I don't think he ever made some sort of contact with the Egyptians in order to set up some sort of plan. Going back to what I think you were trying to drive to earlier, I really, really like this first Doctor in these stories, especially from this point on, because he really does feel more man of action. We talked about at the beginning of we joked a little bit about the beginning of the podcast, but I think he really, when the monk is trying to get into his TARDIS, and the Doctor all along, that's another thing I liked about both of these stories, is the Doctor all along is one step ahead of everybody. Yeah. In fact, for almost all the rest of this, even though he does go on vacation holiday for one episode later on, he's really one step ahead of everybody the whole time, and I really liked that about the Doctor, because it's not something you see with the first Doctor very often. A lot of times, the first Doctor is very reactive, and he often fails the first few times in order to get a footing, in order to get the advantage. And I think in this one, from these stories on, he really feels like he's a step ahead, and he really feels more Doctor-like. He feels, when I say that, I mean he feels more like the Doctor we're more familiar with from recent days. And so I liked that. I don't want the Doctor to be, infallible. Yeah, but I want, I want the Doctor to be the smartest guy in the room, and I think that these paint the first Doctor in that light. And so, yeah, I really quite enjoyed that.
I would agree, and I really enjoyed the interplay with the meddling monk the entire time. The basic trolling that the First Doctor does to him of changing the TARDIS and always being one step ahead of the monk, knowing what he's going to do, was just fantastic and such a delight to watch.
And the monk is great, period. But even his stuff with Sarah and Steven, when he's turned them over and ratted them out and then kind of got brought along, so they're on the ship, and he's playing this, oh, you didn't, my performance was that good? You believed me?
You're welcome for saving your life.
No, I didn't.
I knew I had to fool the Daleks, but I thought for sure you would see it right through it.
And Sarah going, because she doesn't know him, well, maybe. And Steven's over here going,
No.
throwing up his hands, just like, no. Yeah, I really liked these episodes.
They're quite good.
So we get away from the Daleks once again, although Mavic Chin and the Daleks now have the Terranium core. I like the fact that the cliffhanger, I thought, for these two stories, particularly with the Egypt stories, was great, because the Doctor has lost the Terranium core, but he has stolen the directional circuit for the TARDIS, which they are in need of because his is broke. His has not been working. And so
Right.
they've been just popping here and there. So he realizes that he can use this in order to get them back to Kimball. Putting it in, explaining, though, that, well, that's a Mark IV. This is a Type 40. It may actually fry the center. He says that, one thing, it'll either A, work, or B, it'll fry the console here. And to do it and say, they kind of have this conversation. Well, what other choice do we have? So they go ahead and say, okay, well, we'll try it. They try it, and then it flashes, and it looks like the console's exploding. And then that's it. They cut the scene, and I was like, whoa, the first time I was like, that was really good. What's going to happen? And obviously, they didn't fry the console. I've seen more Doctor Who, but what are they going to do next? And I think that's a really good cliffhanger moment.
How are they going to catch up to the
how are they going to do it
Daleks
now? To turn around and do what I think sometimes we have kind of frowned upon is the easy resolution of the cliffhanger, but I think it works here because
it totally works.
You're still very quite surprised because they're the Doctor's like, well, what happened? Well, it's not what happened. Luckily, the TARDIS console has a mechanism in order to protect itself. It drove all the energy back into the circuit and fried it out. And them thinking, well, what are we going to do next? Well, we probably could go see if we could try to steal the monks, thinking they're still in Egypt.
Yeah.
They think they're still there, only to bring the scanner up and realize that the directional circuit did work briefly and managed to get them to land before it fried out. And so I thought that was kind of a neat revelation on the front side of a story where you're like, oh, wow, it did work. So I thought that was really cleverly done.
And then it led to that wonderful exchange of him accusing Sarah of not believing that it would work. And, and her,
which
it
he
was
was
you who said
he
it,
was
no.
the one, yeah. And then
Which was just so wonderful.
Steven's just so casually saying, well, when you get to know the Doctor, you'll understand.
The man is impossible. You're catching on.
And then the Doctor goes on holiday.
Yeah, that was,
And quite abruptly, and without explanation, just whoosh, gone.
He gets lost in
And
the
then
jungle. That's all you need.
We've lost him.
well, you don't get
Go
the
look
impression
for
they
him.
got
He must have
lost
been
in the jungle.
captured.
They got lost from him.
They got lost because you get the impression from the final episode that he had found the underground base because he was already in there when they get captured. So you get the impression that's where he's been the whole time, is he searched, found the underground base, infiltrated it, went in. The first time that I watched this, there was the Doctor being missing was a huge noticeable thing to me, even though I had seen stories where they had written the Doctor out of an episode because he was in Spain.
Right.
Excuse me, because William Hartnell had gone to Spain for holiday. And it was really super obvious. But the interesting thing is, the more times I see it, maybe it's because I've grown to love Sarah and Steven's characters more and their interaction. I didn't notice it near as much this time. The episode seemed to really kind of fly by without me going, the doctor's been gone for a long time, whereas I have done that in the past. So did you guys feel that the doctor was very noticeably gone, or was it different for you?
Because they kind of called attention to it a little bit, of them constantly trying to find the doctor, it didn't bother me at all. I was all right with it.
It bothered me once they called it out. I was kind of the reverse. Like, he just had disappeared, and I was like, well, what happened to the doctor? And then they kept looking for the doctor and couldn't find him, and we get to the abandoned city, and nobody's around, and they keep commenting, well, what happened to the doctor? And I'm like, well, he's got to be on holiday at this point, because he's been gone for more than 10 minutes. Yeah. So it did bother me. But then reading the comic and knowing that he was going to be gone, it felt more organic. It felt, I don't know if it's just because I expected it like you, or if it was the slightly reworked.
Well, it could be my being okay with it could be because I was that far into the audio by the time I actually watched the episode. So I had some overlap. Yeah. So I knew he was going to disappear. So I was all right with it by the time I watched it. Yeah.
So in all three cases, then it was on the second go around, technically.
Yeah.
It depends on
I think what I like about it is that they do call attention to it. And I think because they do a really good job of they're giving Sarah and Steven something to do without giving Sarah and Steven something to do. And by that I mean they're looking for the doctor, and it really works really well with the fact that they think that Mavic Chin probably has him. Mavic Chin thinks that the doctor's abandoned them, and they'll be looking for a new leader, and so he uses that to his advantage. And so I think it plays into the plot very well that the doctor missing is really kind of the caveat for the delegates being released and the Sarah and Steven releasing the delegates. I mean, it really kind of works organically in the sense that they go there and they say, where's the doctor? Do you have him? He must be with you. And Mavic Chin's saying, well, obviously, the doctor has gone off and made a deal with the Daleks, so they're both playing that. And I think it works really good organically for him not to be there, but still have a presence in the conversation of what's going on. So
let's talk a little bit about Mavic Chin. Because I don't understand how the Daleks, being these lumps of wood and plastic, can emote. But Dalek Supreme emotes. And every time it swivels the eye stalk around, it looks at Mavic Chin. It is with this barely contained sense of loathing and this unspoken, I'm going to kill you, but not yet.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I loved it. I just loved everything about their weird... And maybe that's more of a stance on... what's the actor's name?
Kevin Stoney.
Maybe it's more a stance on his acting ability that he's able to pull that out and kind of react to that in that way. But the
best part of I think this story is Mavic Chin and the delegates and the Daleks turning on all of them and locking them in the dungeon for them to be destroyed when the time destructor goes off.
On top of that, the Mavic Chin's descent into madness.
Oh,
I
think
is so well done here. So well done.
Because he's not... I don't think he's mad when he starts out.
Oh, I think he is mad. But I think it's subtle.
Yeah.
I think it's very subtle, and I think it's done well to a crescendo by the end of the story.
And as it goes on, and he gets further and further
closer to power.
And closer to power, and gets more obsessed with holding on to that power. And he turns on the delegates.
And that tirade he gives, man, that is a heck of an acting performance.
We are all equal. Some of us are more equal.
Some of us more equal than others.
But then when he gets betrayed and thrown in with them, he's not cognitive of his position.
No,
he still is lording over them in the holding cell, going, "You don't get it. I'm in charge. This is not even a setback. This is just." And they're looking at him like, we're going to kill you right now. We're not going to wait. Oh, wait, somebody's at the door. Can we get out? And he sneaks away because he's a perfect villain because he does that.
Blows
Well,
up his
I
own
love
ship.
that he sabotages his own ship and blows it up so that they think that he's dead, only to show up at the end of the episode and capture Sarah and Steven. I thought was wow.
Yeah.
But the exchange with the Dalek in particular, what was the line you had? Potential open about failure will be, or insolence will be met with the one penalty, and
with only one reward.
only one reward.
Right.
Yeah.
Click, and nothing happens.
Well, he shoots the gun. I misremember that the gun actually goes off and there's a shot, but it has no effect on the Dalek.
Yeah, Dalek
Right.
Supreme is like,
But he didn't shoot Dalek Supreme because
well,
in
it's
that
whatever that other one
it was in that setup that's the other thing that I thought was very cool. The gall of the man to think that he's still looking for power and leadership and thinks that the Emperor Dalek is going to give it to him. He thinks he has constructed a deal with the Emperor, or with the Dalek Supreme, with the Dalek Supreme to have power equal to Dalek Supreme over the other Daleks. And he tells Dalek Supreme, have them, give me my power and have them, be subservient to me. And then he has the goal to say, well, I will take the silence for that you've relayed the order, and then going over to the Dalek and ordering it and it not obeying, and then shooting it, and then it not working, and then meeting his man.
Because is it at that point that he runs screaming from the room, yelling?
He does.
Not invincible, but
I'm
immortal.
I'm immortal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As he runs screaming from the room, I'm immortal, dude. You are cracked.
That's
when he fully snaps.
That's that terrific crescendo up to that point where he has completely snapped. Now that is it. He is cracked.
Because that's the only possible. I mean, what in your history so far with these episodes has made you believe that you're immortal? We've not seen any evidence of this. Granted, you have been hanging out with Daleks and have not wound up crispy yet, but I think your little performance in there has now assured that you are
right.
on the menu.
His rise to power, and I think even before making a deal with the conference and the Daleks, I think his rise to power obviously had something to do with him developing this God complex. And I think at the very beginning of this, we're told how revered he is by the citizens of the solar system, and how there's even the two people, the gal that wants to see his speech before he takes off on his leisure cruise, and the one guy kind of ribbing her for it, but also showing a little bit of reverence to him, as well. So he's obviously developed a God complex because of that, and then wanting to grab more power, and then through the event, through the course of these stories of what's happened, just completely elevating that God complex to the point where I'm immortal. It's just to get to that point. I think it's crafted really well.
Now I'm really curious, and this is one of the few times where I would have loved to have a prequel or something. Was Mavic Chin, do we think, was there a war early that he was like the ender that saved all of humanity and the solar
Gave him
system?
a bit of a savior.
And that's why
element.
he's now in charge of the Space Force. That's why he's Guardian of the Galaxy, because he
Yeah,
did all this.
How did he get that title?
When he was a young man, and he was very charismatic, but he shied away from public office because, no, I don't want that. I just will do my job. And then the more he did it, and the more loved he was because he was humble, the more he thought, yeah, I deserve it. I'm going to take it. Somebody do that because I really want to know more.
Well, you almost don't need it because you can just fill it in yourself because of his performance.
Yeah.
I think so too.
And what little nuggets they do give you.
I'd still watch it.
Oh, yeah. Especially if it's Kevin Stone.
So the Doctor's plan is to go ahead and activate the Time Destructor.
Yeah. Whew. That's where things take a turn.
It was an interesting thing, and it took me a few times of going through this. I never really could the first time understand why he set it up. Why would you the thing that you're trying to keep the Daleks from doing or getting, you've used it as a last ditch doomsday device to start it. And I thought, You've been trying not to do.
Well,
and
knowing that he sent Sarah, thinking he sent Sarah and Steven to the
well,
TARDIS. So
that I'm not talking about a safety thing. I'm talking about
No, I mean it's so knowing his companions are safe, he's sacrificing himself to destroy the planet and the Daleks.
I don't even think it's so much that, because I think my point is, it seems like this device, you don't want the Daleks starting it, or all of time is going to be destroyed. That was my problem with it.
Yeah, they never really defined
right.
what the
They don't define,
Destructor
but
did.
I think that what they did this time, at least for me, was the Daleks were going to use it as their ace in the hole. They were going to put it on the lead ship in the invasion, and they were going to have it on board and use it as a device to say, if you don't be subservient to us, we will detonate this device. We will start that device. And I think that was kind of the intent for it, was more of a threatening tool than anything. So that they don't expect that they would ever need to really use it. They probably would, because they're Daleks. If they had, push came to shove, they would use it. But I also think that it must work on a varying scale as well, because the Doctor at one point says, I have it set on a low level.
Right.
So it's at least contained to a certain area, and he knew that was going to be the case.
I kind of disagree. I think all the way up to that moment, we've all been led to believe that this is bad. We've spent 11 episodes trying to make sure they don't get this thing turned on.
Right.
So
and then the Doctor goes and turns it on, and it's like, what?
That was my point. The first time that I watched it, I was like, what?
Why wouldn't he just remove the core?
Yeah, and even up through the episode, well, because then he's in the same boat where the Daleks are just going to
chase him
and threaten him to put it back. But even through the episode, I was still a little fuzzy on what it did. Reading the comic, as I interpret it, the fact that the Doctor says, I've activated it, but it's running, but it's very slow. I think by putting this in the lead ship, and I could be wrong, but I think by putting this thing in the lead ship is it's not a bomb, it's more of a directionalized time ray, and the Daleks pull up and flip it on at full power, and it accelerates time all at once for the entire planet, and everybody's dead, and then they turn it off, and they're like, okay, you're going to surrender now, right? And
it's kind of what
the fact that the Doctor, they never say that.
Had they given me the impression that it was a device to be used in a weapon, not as a weapon. You know what I mean?
Other than the title, I never got the impression that it would destroy all of time, though, either, because they tried to use it.
What part of the Time Destructor does not say destruction?
But they tried to use it on one dude.
Yeah.
Oh, they were going to use it. They were going to use it in that room. Yeah.
So.
Right.
Just testing it would destroy all of time.
You're right. I had forgotten about that.
And
That's
we know
a good
that
point.
The Daleks are homicidal, but I don't think they're that homicidal. Like even Davros.
They're homicidal, but they're not suicidal.
There you go. Yeah. Even Davros with the reality bomb, we're going to hole up in this part and be safe.
Right.
So that we'll be the only ones left. You know, it doesn't help them any to actually destroy all of time because they go with it. So by the Doctor turning it on, knowing that he's activated it maybe at full power, but at this very slow setting, so it is affecting everything.
Yeah, because the Doctor says he can accelerate it.
Well, you guys are hitting on exactly what I've come to now. Yeah,
I think it was the Doctor's plan all along to burn out the core.
Yeah, you're certainly right, and I think that's what I finally came to after a few times watching this, was realizing that the Doctor knew the capacity and power of this thing and what it could do, and I certainly think you're right. Although I think that the Daleks, in that sense, that if they were going to use it, would have to, like you said, turn it on full power and turn it off, because if the tritium core is going to burn out that quickly, he must have done something to it in order to make sure it was an overdrive so that it would burn out. Although the Doctor also gives the indication that he's going to start this thing and they're going to escape to the TARDIS where he can neutralize it. And then he suddenly doesn't have to do anything. But he also puts out there that, once the thing, at least it's telegraphed to us that once the tritium core burns out, the thing will stop.
And maybe because
that's what had to happen.
Yeah, maybe it's not designed to unleash that wave that slowly. So it's up here at full power, but it's only getting this much out. And it causes a feedback loop that burns it out faster. I don't know. The sci-fi fan in me would have liked
Yeah, a little more.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
that
I
explains
agree.
what this is. The rest of me is like, realistically, this is just yet another Dalek
But
super weapon.
I
It's a
get the
MacGuffin.
impression at least a good chunk of the planet was affected by it.
Oh, yeah.
If
And-
not the entire planet.
and-
If not the entire planet.
What an impressive way to go with a story, especially back then, where Sarah ditches Stephen, who the doctor is sent off to make sure that they're safe. And I think the doctor, this is kind of retconning it now, or retroactively explaining it now. But I think the doctor knew, because we still don't know that much about the doctor. Now, first of all, we don't know that he can regenerate at this time if we're coming at it from point A. But I think now the doctor knew that he would be able to, and I think that it goes far enough to explain why he survived and Sarah didn't. Mm-hmm. Sarah has a natural aging process of a human, and so she obviously accelerated faster. The doctor has a much slower acceleration process of aging, and that's why he survives. The weird thing about that is they would never have known that back when they wrote these stories.
Right.
So there's really no explanation for why Sarah ends up becoming a skeleton,
yeah.
and the doctor doesn't. Now, the cool
Other
thing
than
about
he's
the
alien.
comic book is the comic book goes one step closer, and it starts to age Stephen as he comes out, and the doctor goes into the
even looks
regeneration.
aged,
Yeah,
yeah.
he looks more aged in that. But he goes into the regeneration, and you see the regeneration cycle starting. And then is actually thwarted once he gets him inside the TARDIS. But
Yeah.
that was neat too,
Well,
which I
and-
think
and the
maybe
fact
the
that Stephen-
writer of the comic book that adapted the comic must have kind of went along that lines too, of why the doctor was able to
Right.
survive.
And I think Stephen, they added that little embellishment right at the right time because Stephen then reversed it, so that kept him from fully going into
Right,
regeneration.
right. Well,
mode.
which then
not just the TARDIS.
I don't
going
think
into the TARDIS.
I think the TARDIS reverses the effects because Stephen didn't do anything.
Stephen flipped a switch, and they say, "Yeah, you reverse the time destructor because it starts going backwards."
Oh, in the comic?
In both, from what I remember.
Oh, I didn't
don't
get
remember
that.
that.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
I thought it was kind of the same thing. And I wondered if they were, again, not something that has really would have been thought about at the time, but, would they have brought out, well, it's because the TARDIS is in a state of grace, that once he gets it inside, that it's not going to affect anything. Or
Well, that's the
she can
impression I
contain
got.
it,
And
or-
I thought that closing the door, I thought he just flipped the switch to close the door, and that's what stopped the acceleration within the TARDIS.
No, because in the
Because the time disruptor was still outside and still operating when the Daleks rolled
Right,
up.
because they had to wait for
because
the...
it started going. This is part of also why from the audio it explains.
Although, you know what?
He flips this. He tries flipping it off and winds up flipping it in reverse, and then they go inside.
You know what? Now that you say that, the doctor orders Stephen to go back and get and he says something ready. And so that must have been why he originally sent him back to do whatever he's going to do here that does reverse.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't in the comic, but it was in the audio that they talk about how he flipped a switch to reverse the time destructor, and
Okay.
that's why
So apparently
that's
the-
why their primordial ooze, what do they call it?
Embryonic
yeah,
state. The
an
Daleks.
embryo of the Daleks.
Because they are in the TV series. They don't even tackle that in the comic.
Right, yeah, and
They're
so-
just dust in the
yeah.
comic.
So that's why they're embryonic.
And I remember the little scrolling info text across the bottom of the recon saying that they were embryonic. They'd reduced to embryonic states.
Yeah.
That's interesting that the episode was apparently vague enough that the audio went one direction with it, and the comic took a completely different and yet
Yeah.
similar
Yeah.
take on how it ended.
Right.
Well, I'm sure the audio too worked from original shooting scripts too, so would have had a little more embellishment on it. So.
Yeah.
No, I loved the regeneration hands. That was the
That was
best
cool.
moment. And again, from a point of hindsight.
Well, and even to the point that the doctor and Stephen go out with, they've kind of looking over what has happened, what has transgressed, and the doctor is very much we've saved one planet.
Oh yeah.
And Stephen kind of turns and snaps at him about
how many people have
but
died?
Brett and Sarah and Katerina, and the doctor says, "I know." And so that was really a powerful moment, I thought, because it goes back to that particular story this year when the boy gets sucked under the ice, and Bill's having a real tough time with
Yeah.
that, and the doctor seems very nonchalant about it. And it's the fact that he's just seen that, and you have to continue, you have to keep going forward. And this really kind of harkens back to that. It's almost a mirror of the two, where the way that the doctor's reacting is, well, here's what we did. He's looking for the positive, and Stephen's dwelling on the loss, but the doctor gives a little bit of I know, which is more of the sympathy of, I understand what you're feeling, and I thought that was kind of cool. Again, kind of retroactively.
Yeah.
And then there's Sarah.
Oh, poor Sarah.
It was noble for her to come back, especially when
yeah.
she doesn't know the doctor that well. She's at least gotten to trust him well enough, gotten to become close enough to him to go back.
To believe in him.
Yeah, to believe in him, yes, and go back for him. Even though Stevens, says he can take care of himself, the doctor says, go, you go.
I was really a little shocked. I've seen the last image, not knowing that this was it, of really
Skeletal
dead Sarah laying
Yeah.
in the
Skeletal
ground
Sarah.
with the hand exchange. But to see it, even in retcon or loose cannon magic, where it was kind of dissolve to that image.
I can only imagine what it was like in actual moving pictures.
It's horrifying. It's very...
Mary Whitehouse would have had a heyday.
I know, right? I kind of thought that. It's like, whoa. Because no companion death is necessarily ever a good ending.
But that is seems like
bad
especially
death.
horrific
Yeah.
ending.
It's a bad death. And I was really kind of almost taken aback at how graphic it was for the show at the time. And I thought that was particularly bold to show it.
Yeah.
Even though, maybe she hadn't reached favored nation status yet, it's not like we killed off Sarah Jane in that manner.
Yeah, but still, just to kill off any character being killed off in that manner isn't very common for this.
Yeah.
Let alone a recurring character and someone that potentially could have been a companion had she signed a contract.
Until Tom Baker's era, when they do it for laughs. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, that was powerful. I liked Sarah. I don't know that I fell in love with her as a companion right away. I think there was still her interplay with Stephen was really good, and her interplay with the Doctor was really good. Had this had a different ending, and she decided she wasn't going to travel with them, that she was going to stay behind and help rebuild the space security force, I'd have been okay with it.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, we'll see you later. Which means we won't. But
Thanks for your help.
If she had become a full-time companion, I would have been interested to see where they may have gone with that, and maybe I'd have liked her better. It's not that I didn't like her. I did. I'm always going, oh, I was another future companion that didn't make it. I didn't feel that way about Sarah.
Yeah.
So.
Sarah Kingdom for me is one of those parts that's fascinating me, because I think she's very much different than your typical companion. And I think that I too kind of felt like I don't think it would have served any. They could have made it work, but I don't think it would have served anything to have her go on as a companion of the Doctor, and especially because I'm kind of like you. If she had survived, I would have almost rather her said, I'm going to go back and clear things up, put the record straight, explain what Mavic Chen's done here, and because as far as we know, Mavic Chen still revered on Earth,
Yeah.
is been lost, and probably his legacy will be that he died trying to stop the Daleks, because there's nobody left to explain what happened.
Right.
On the other hand, everybody thinks he's on a leisure cruise, so at least the public does. The people within the government, he's been back a couple of times.
Yeah.
But,
And even more interesting, would she let that legacy stand?
well,
If she went back,
Yeah.
would she just say,
and
we're just going to
she would have to go up against Mr. Clean, because he's still
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah.
There was no demise for him, and he would have been the next in charge behind Mavic Chen had their plan to team with the Daleks, gone the way they thought it was going to go, he was going to be second in power.
Right.
We don't know what his station is in the government now. He may be elevated up to Guardian of the Galaxy, and he has the same ambitions as Mavic Chen did. So,
well, what happens is he never gets over the fact that he's not that person, that he doesn't get to be second in command. So he develops his own time machine, but it doesn't quite work. The two guys that were in the science, they threw him back in time in addition to another planet, and he becomes Niter.
oh,
Not quite.
all right, Sean, what do we got coming on?
I
the
believe it.
schedule?
It's the same kind of.
I think overall for the story,
sorry.
as much as I enjoyed the entire ride of all 12 episodes, you really could cut out the fat and make it a 4-part story, all on Kimball, and it still would have been a very fast-paced, very action-packed 4-part story.
I think you couldn't do more than 4 parts, and I don't know. I would have probably got tired of one location. Although we've had 4-part stories that have been compelling in one
I think
place.
Considering because there isn't that much character or overall Dalek plot exploration in some of these stories. By condensing it, you could have easily made it a 4-part compelling one location story. But still, 12 parts for being 12 parts, it was a lot more fun than you would expect for even the padding.
It's a lot more fun than the War Machines. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah.
War Machines is a good story. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot more fun because there's not as much
War Games.
War Games. I'm sorry, the War Games.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot more fun than the War Games. Probably because we don't do a lot of spinning of the wheels that we.
That's the nice thing about this. While there is a lot of padding and a lot of excess to it, it's not repetitive.
Yeah.
It's changing constantly, so it makes it seem different until you kind of stop and look at it from a macro view of, oh, wait, no, well, it's kind of, go here, escape, run away, and as opposed to capture, escape.
I do feel it was repetitive and a lot of padding. I mean, it's an L. Ron Hubbard.
It's still better than crossing that chasm in the first Dalek story. I'd take 12 episodes of this over that 12 minutes.
I read I don't remember the name of it now, but it was billed as the L. Ron Hubbard Decology. That was 10 books that were going to be this big epic story, and I read the first one and got so disgusted that I never even bothered to continue on because it's like there was about 20 pages worth of story here. And you embellished and put so much crap padding in it to make it a 10-book series. I don't have any. I'm done.
That's why they only did one movie.
That one I liked, but
I don't think this is that bad.
It's not that bad, and mainly because yes, it's padded, and yes, it's repetitive in that reverting to type that we're capture and escape or capture and flee.
Not even capture,
flee
just
and
flee.
chase.
Yeah.
But the characters and the situations that are within that repetitive construct are entertaining enough that yes, I think it does elevate it up. Unlike the War Games, where I do enjoy the characters and I do enjoy the situations, it's very obvious that it's okay. Well, we're back exactly where we started in the same situation 3 episodes ago. The same people are still involved. Nothing has advanced. This one, at least, we lose Brett, we gain Sarah. There is some change to the status quo as it goes along. So, I suppose in that regard, I do have to put it above War Games.
But War Games has Patrick Troughton.
But War Games does have Patrick Troughton. So. But in this one, Hartnell's wearing the hat.
And only 1 episode.
Well, that's
2 episodes.
That's still potent.
That's a potent hat.
Sean, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up next week on the schedule, we return to the lands of Big Finish with, what is it? Mainline story number 106, The Dark Husband. And then, if you are following along at home, you want to start reading, because our episode 395 will have our reviews of Lethbridge Stewart, The Lost Skin, by friend of the show, Andy Frankham Allen. And we will finally be getting around to the short story from the Lethbridge Stewart quiz book. Now, we had already reviewed and talked about the quiz book, but there is a short at the end of it, and we will give it a proper review paired up with Lost Skin.
Cool.
And I have not put anything else on the schedule as of yet, so more will be coming.
It'll be a surprise.
Soon.
All right. Well, don't forget you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts to listen to us on the Google Play Store. We're also available on Stitcher. I can get through this. Well, you can also listen to us on TuneIn and Player FM. And I think that's all I have this week.
I have one other note that now that it's official is that if you happen to be in the Topeka area, the TopCon Geek Expo is coming up the weekend of September 15th and 16th, and you can see us there on the 15th in a panel at 10 a.m. So we're the lead-offs. We get to be first out of the box.
10 a.m.?
10 a.m.
Oh, I didn't know that. We're canceling. All right. If that's going to do it for this time. Until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.